Good morning, everyone. The rain has stopped for a while anyway. I'm upstairs where it's a bit warmer today, and I thought that's where I would do our little visit this morning because it's more pleasant than my cold, dark office, at least the way my office looks at the moment. Anyway, on November 15th, on the evening of November 15th, 1975, I had just been initiated in a small ceremony in the garage temple, which was artfully decorated in Dublin, California, and it was the home of Phyllis and Grady McMurtry. Now, I know many of you know Phyllis as Phyllis Seckler, but at the time she was still married to Grady McMurtry, and they were just starting to resurrect the Crowley initiatory body called Ordo Templi Orientis. And I was one of the first I was one of the first guinea pigs, I guess. But at the time, I didn't know that the OTO wasn't a big organization with, temples with golden doors and things like that. And I was really surprised that the initiation was only officiated and attended by Phyllis and Grady. But it was wonderful. It was awesome. But at the dinner that followed, Phyllis made a marvelous feast afterwards. And I had a chance to ask Grady and Phyllis a bunch of questions. And of course, I asked, well, how many people are in the OTO, and what's the organization like, and is it in other places? And I said, well, how is, and there really wasn't an organization as such. And Grady says, well, you're pretty much looking at the OTO right here. There's a few other old ninth degree members from Crowley's day scattered in different parts of the country and the world, but for the most part, this is the OTO. And then he got out this book, The Blue Equinox, and it wasn't this particular edition because this is the Weiser 72 or 73 edition. But it was the first edition of it, and he said more or less that the OTO was in this book. And then he slid it across the table and he says, and this is your programming guide to the OTO. And indeed, it does have a lot of OTO related material and AA material, the AA curriculum. It's got the Message of the Master Therian and OTO Manifesto and the Constitution and things like that. But the point was that the OTO existed in Crowley's mind for the most part, and through the efforts of just a scattered number of individuals over the years. Now it is one of the largest overtly magical organizations in the world. Um, but at the time, it was mostly, or a great deal of the OTO was just Phyllis and Grady and me at Phyllis's dining room table. Anyway, the book I'm reading from, Liber Lege, Libellum, Liber 150, we're going to finish up today, and it is included in this book. And we'll be on final chapter 4 concerning light. Now we've done light, life, love, and liberty are the 3 L's of the law, which is the 5th L. And we're going to, we've done them all but light. And so I bring you light this morning. I pray you be patient with me in that which I shall write concerning light. For here there's a difficulty ever increasing in the use of words. Moreover, I am myself carried away constantly and overwhelmed by the sublimity of this matter, so that plain speech may whirl into lyric, when I would plod peaceably with didactic expression. My best hope is that you may understand by virtue of the sympathy of your intuition, even as 2 lovers may converse in language as unintelligible to others as it seemeth silly, wanton, and dull, or as in that other intoxication given by ether, the partakers commune with infinite wit or wisdom as the mood taketh them, by means of a word or a gesture, being initiated to apprehension by the subtlety of the drug. I digress. How many times have you ever, in the old days when we would sit around and smoke that very, very weak commercial marijuana, you'd get the giggles, okay? And the dumbest things would set you off into giggles and little subtleties. It's similar to 2 kids sitting in church, and they do something, one of them does a gesture, does something funny, and it makes the other one giggle. And then that giggling makes the first person giggle. And then the fact that they're both giggling makes them giggle even more. That's kind of what he's talking about here. So may I, that am inflamed with love of this light, and drunken on the wine of ethereal, the wine ethereal of this light, communicate not so much with your reason and intelligence, but with that principle hidden in yourself which is ready to partake with me. Even so, may man and woman become mad with love, no word being spoken between them because of the indication, as it were, of their souls. And your understanding will depend upon your ripeness for perception of my truth. I'm going to digress just for a second. That is the best freaking line imaginable. Memorize that line and use it when you're trying to explain something spiritually profound to someone who just doesn't have the capacity to get it, even if it's simple and elementary. As your understanding will depend upon your ripeness for the perception of my truth. Excuse me. I just love that line. Okay, sorry, I digress. Moreover, if so be that light in you be ready to break forth, then light will interpret to you these dark words in the language of light. Even as a string inanimate, duly adjusted, will vibrate to its particular tone struck on another chord. Read, therefore, not only with the eye and the brain, but with the rhythm of that life with which you have attained by your will to love, quickeneth to dancing measure by these words, which are the movements of my wand, of the wand of my will to love, and so to kindle your life to light. That's the introduction to this. Okay, that being said, let's go. In this mood did I interpret myself in the writing of this my little book, and for 2 days and nights sleeplessly have made consideration, wrestling vehemently with my spirit, lest by haste or carelessness I might fail toward you. In exercise of will and of love are implied in motion and change, but in life is gained as unity. Now, to me that was a kind of a clumsy way for me to grasp my meat brain around that. So I'm going to do it again with you. In exercise of will and love are implied motion and change, but in life is gained in unity, which moveth and changes only in pulse or in phase, even as music. Yet in the attainment of this life, you will have already experienced that the quintessence thereof is pure light, an ecstasy formless and without bound or mark. In this light, naught exists, for it is homogeneous, and therefore have men called it silence and darkness and nothing. But in this, as in all other efforts to name it, is the root of every fallacy and misapprehension, since all words imply some duality. Therefore, though I call it light, it is not light nor absence of light. Many also have sought to describe it by contradictions, since through transcendent negation of all speech it may by some natures be attained. Also by images and symbols have men striven to express it, but always in vain. Yet those that were ready to apprehend the nature of this light have understood by sympathy. And so shall it be with you who read this little book, loving it. However, being it known unto you that the best of all instruction on this matter, and the word best suited to the aeon of Horus, is written in the book of the law. Yet also the book of Ararita is right worthy in the work of light, as Trigrammaton in that of will, Cordis Quinte Serpente in the way of love. That's Hartgerber's serpent. And Librie in that of life. Now these are all Class A documents, holy books of Thelema. All these books also concern all these four gifts, for in the end you will see that every one is inseparable from every other. I wish to write to you with regard to the number 93. the number of Thelema. For it is not only the number of its interpretation, agape, but also that of a word unknown to you unless you be a neophyte of our holy order of the AA, which word representeth in itself the arising of the speech from the silence and the return thereunto in the end. Now this number 93 is thrice 31, which in Hebrew, la, or lamed aleph, that is to say, not. So la, la, in Hebrew, means the word not. And so it denieth extension in the three dimensions of space. Also, I would have you to meditate most closely upon the name Nu, N-U, Nun, Va. That is 56, which we were told to divide, add, multiply, and understand. By division cometh forth 0.12. As if it were written Nuit, Hadit, Rahur Kuit, all before the dyad. By addition, again 5-6, by addition ariseth 11, the number of true magic, and by multiplication 300, the number of the Holy Spirit of fire, the letter Shin, wherein all things are consumed utterly. So that was 0.12. He got all of that out of 0.12. With these considerations and a full understanding of the mysteries of the numbers 666 and 418, you'll be armed mightily in this way of far flight. But you should also consider all numbers in their scales. For there is no means of resolution better than this of pure mathematics, since already therein are gross ideas made fine, and all is ordered and ready for the alchemy of the great work. I have already written to you of how, in the will of love, light ariseth as the secret part of life. And in the first, the little loves, and in the first, the little loves, the attained life is still personal. Later it becometh impersonal and universal. Now then this will arrived, may I say so, at its magnetic pole, where the lines of force point alike every way and no way. And love also is no more a work, but a state. These qualities are become part of the universal life which proceedeth infinitely with the enjoyment of the will, and of love as inherent therein. These things, therefore, in their perfection, have lost their names and natures. Yet these were the substance of life, its father and mother, and without their operation and impact, life itself will gradually cease its pulsations. But since infinite energy of the universe is therein, what then is possible that it return to its own first intention, dissolving itself little by little into that light, which is its most secret and most subtle nature? For this universe is in truth zero, being an equation thereof, 0 is the sum. Whereof this is the proof, that if not, it would be unbalanced, and something would have to come from nothing, which is absurd. This light, or nothing, is the resultant, or totality thereof, in pure perfection. And all other states, positive or negative, are imperfect, since they omit their opposites. Yet I would have you consider that this equality or identity of equation between all things and no thing is most absolute, so that you will remain no more in the one than you did in the other. And you'll understand this greatest mystery very easily in the light of those other expectations which you will have enjoyed. Therein motion and rest, change and stability, and many other subtle opposites have been redeemed to identity by the force of your holy meditation. The greatest gift of the law, then, cometh forth by the most perfect practice of the three lesser gifts. And so thoroughly must you travail in this work, that you're able to pass from one side of the equation to the other at will. Nay, to comprehend the whole at once and forever. This then, your time and space-bound soul shall travel according to its nature in its orbit, revealing the law to them that walk in chains, for that is your particular function. Now here is the mystery of the origin of evil. Firstly, by evil we mean that which is in opposition to our own wills. It is therefore a relative and not an absolute term. For everything which is the greatest evil of someone is the greatest good of some other. Just as the hardness of the wood wearieth the axeman, is the safety of him that ventureth himself upon the sea in a ship built of that wood. And this is a truth easy to apprehend, being superficial and intelligible to the common mind. All evil is thus relative or apparent or illusory. But returning to philosophy, I'll repeat that its root is always in duality. Therefore, the escape from this apparent evil is to seek the unity, which you shall do as I have already shewn you. But I will now make mention of that which is written concerning this in the book of the law. The first step being will, evil appears as, by this definition, quote, all that hinders the execution of the will, unquote. Therefore it is written, quote, the word of sin is restriction, unquote. It should be noted that in the book of the 30 Aethers, evil appears as koronzon, whose number is 333, which in Greek impotence and idleness. And the nature of koronzon is dispersion and incoherence. Then, in the way of love, evil appears as, quote, all that which tends to prevent the union of any two things, unquote. Thus, the book of the law saith under the figure of the voice of Nuit, quote, take your fill and will of love as ye will, when, where, and with whom ye will, but always unto me, unquote. For every act of love must be, quote, under will, unquote. That is, in accordance with the true will, which is not to rest content with things particular and not to be content with things partial and transitory, but to proceed firmly to the end. So also, in the book of the 38ers, the black brothers are those who shut themselves up, unwilling to destroy themselves by love. Thirdly, in the way of life, evil appears under a subtler form as, quote, all that which is not impersonal and universal, unquote. Here the book of the law, by the voice of Hadith, informeth us, quote, in the sphere I am everywhere the center, unquote. And again, quote, I am life and the giver of life. Come unto me is a foolish word, for it is I that go, unquote. Quote, for I am perfect, being not, unquote. For this life is in every place and time at once, so that in it these limitations no longer exist. And you will have seen this for yourself, that in every act of love, time and space disappear. With the creation of the life by its virtue, as also doth personality itself. For the third time then, in even subtler sense, quote, the word of sin is restriction, unquote. Lastly, in the way of light, this same versicle is the key to the conception of evil. But here restriction is in the failure to solve the great equation, and later to prefer one expression or phase of the universe to the other. Against this we are warned in the book of the law by the word of Nuit, saying, quote, none and two. For I am divided for love's sake, for the chance of union, unquote. And therefore, quote, if this be not aright, if ye confound this space mark, saying they are one, or saying they are many, then expect the direful judgments, unquote. Now, therefore, by the favor of Thoth, I have come to the end of my little book. And do you arm yourselves accordingly with the four weapons, the wand of liberty, the cup for love, the sword for life, the disc for light, and with these work all wonders by the art of high magic under the law of the new Aeon, whose word is Thelema. And that's the end of Liber 150, taken from the Blue Equinox. I believe you can also get it in now a paperback edition and other editions, including one that the OTO publishes as the Equinox Volume 3, number 1, I think. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this and it has given you food for thought. I apologize for my clumsy reading, but I do the best I can to share things I love. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow. Continue to have a good day. And if it's not a good day yet, make it one. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Hopefully, see you tomorrow.